This is a subcommittee meeting of the Public Schools Subcommittee. My name is Brandon Robbins. I'm the chair of the Public Schools Committee, and I'm joined today by Ward 5 City Councilor Carrie Noseworthy, who is the third member on the committee. I'm just going to quickly read the Committee of the Whole notice because we do have a quorum of city councilors here. This notice of a City Council Committee of the Whole meeting is posted in the event that a quorum of city councilors is present at this standing committee meeting. If less than a quorum of the City Council is present, no Committee of the Whole meeting shall take place. If a quorum is present, any such meeting shall be restricted to the standing committee agenda items listed above. So we're here tonight and joined by Leominster's project manager for the Fallbrook School project, Left Field, and our architect, MDS. I'm going to turn it over to Craig and Nareda. They can introduce themselves and they're going to give us a little overview on the project. I'm going to ask that because we do have another subcommittee scheduled for 6:45, if you have questions, just hold them till the end of their presentation. They'll take questions at the end of the presentation so we can kind of keep things streamlined. But I'm going to toss it over to Craig.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councilor Robbins, and thank you all for inviting us here. My name is Craig DiCarlo. I'm a senior project manager with Left Field. I am the Left Field is the owner's project manager, the OPM for the Fallbrook Elementary School project. Nareda?
Hi, my name is Nareda Rodriguez. My name is Nareda Rodriguez. I am a principal at MDS Architects. We're the architecture firm designing the school, and I'm here to hopefully share some light on what we've been doing the last few months.
Fantastic.
Craig, I'm just going to also throw in, we're also joined by Greg Chapdelaine and Jen Reddington, who are both on the building committee with myself and Ward 4 Councilor Verdanza as well, and a list of other people.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so our intent tonight is to catch you up with where the project has been, a little bit about the MSBA, Mass School Building Authority process, a little bit about some of the metrics of the project, and then the design team has got these really great renderings and floor plans that will bring you through. As Councilor Robbins mentioned at the end, we're open to any and all questions. All right, so to start off, I always like to show this slide because this shows the relationship between the MSBA and what we call the district, which is the city, the school, and the school building committee. So that those solid line arrows, those are the contractual relationships. So MSBA and the district partner up, and they both contribute financially to the project. But then the district also does all the hiring. So they hire first us, Left Field, the OPM. Then we help and select the design team, which is MDS, and then eventually we'll select and hire a general contractor who will do the actual construction work. Go ahead to the next slide, please. The MSBA process is long, but it is nice in that it keeps districts moving in a forward, kind of predictable pattern. They break up the whole project from concept to after construction with these modules or steps. So there are two contractual or two agreements that happen with MSBA and the district over the life of the project. The first one happened all the way back in 2023. So prior to 2023, the district said, hey, we're interested in doing a project with the MSBA. They submitted their statement of interest. February of 2023, that was approved by the MSBA, and you entered into the feasibility study agreement. That was for $2.5 million, and that's to research and go through the myriad of options for what this project could be. And so that was, shortly thereafter, you started step 2, forming the team. That was hiring Left Field, hiring MDS, and then the feasibility study, which is looking at many options, and then distilling them down for schematic design into one option. And so we did that. We looked at many options, and the building committee gave us direction, and we narrowed it down to one, which is a new construction project on the site right next to the existing Fallbrook Elementary School. So then the next big question is funding. So the city came up with a plan for funding, and with all those things in place, the MSBA and the district signed executed the project funding agreement, and that's the $114.8 million total project budget. So that's everything. It's tiny up there, but that includes the previous $2.5 million. So $114.8 million is the total cost for everything, including construction, which we'll talk about. So right now we're in step 6, detailed design. That's wrapping up this summer, and the next step will be construction. So this fall, that's when our general contractor, who we haven't selected yet, will be out and start doing construction activities. So part of the reason why Councilor Robbins wanted us to come here tonight was to help inform everybody, both councilors as well as the public, about what to expect come the fall. Go to the next slide.
Can you interrupt? You might
Yes.
want to say something about the potential for the early, just so they know.
That's we might have a slide about that, but Greg is mentioning that there is a small package of work that we're doing in advance ahead of the fall. That's going to be this summer, and it's primarily to prepare the footprint or the site where the new building's going to go, prepare it for construction, moving some existing underground utility lines. So it's a small scope, but that is the first time people start seeing construction vehicles, construction fences, things of that nature. So another thing that happened way back, and this was in 2022, the enrollment certification. So the district and MSBA worked together to figure out how many students are going to be, how many students this building is going to be designed for. It's got to be designed for something. It's in the future. We don't really know. The building's supposed to last for 50 years, so there's got to be some flexibility built in. And so there's a very sophisticated process that the MSBA goes through, and they came up with 610 students. Now, again, that's built for growth, built for flexibility, so 610 students isn't the maximum occupancy. We've actually done some kind of back of the napkin calculations and figure that you could easily fit in, high 600s, 700, maybe even a little bit more by being creative about the use of the different art room, maybe turn that into a classroom, things like that. But we'll talk more about that. And if anyone's got any, either here or in the public, have any questions about that process, the MSBA has a really nice website, and this link down there at the bottom explains the process that they go through with the city in great detail. Next slide. Another fundamental document that this one is produced exclusively by the school department is the educational program. And so what this document is really the how the school educates, their philosophies, their curriculum, their methods, and how a new school project is going to support that. That's the key, is whatever we build has got to support this educational program. So the school put that together. It's like a 90-page document. It's very well done. The MSBA was very, very pleased with it. And so that's our guiding principle. Every room that goes in the building is there because of this document. Once that's done, the district then it switches into designing the school to match this document, and that's where the design team comes in. Go ahead, Narita. So those are kind of the foundational documents and agreements that are in place for this project, and those have all been executed. The next thing is cost. So as I mentioned before, the total project budget, and that's everything: professional services, construction of the building, furnishings, technology, everything, $114.8 million. Of that, the biggest piece is the estimated construction cost, which we've estimated as just under $90 million. So what the MSBA does is they say, based on every community's that they work with, based on need, and there's another complicated formula that they use, they come up with what their reimbursement rate's going to be. The maximum that they reimburse for any project, regardless of need, is 80%. So they came up with, I think it was 76%, somewhere thereabouts, for the feasibility study. And then working with the design team, there were 5.29 extra percentage points. Is it 5.29 or 3.29? Whatever it was, got us almost up to that maximum 80% of eligible costs. So I say eligible costs, and we've got those in italics up there because that's really the key. The MSBA does not pay for everything. They pay for, they have a certain program that they've developed and evolved over years. Certain costs are in, certain costs are out, and others they'll pay, but only up to a certain cap. An example of a cost that is out, they don't pay for legal services. So if there's any legal services required for the project, they put that on the district 100%. An example of a cost that's capped is, say, furnishing. So they'll pay up to $1,200 per student for furnishing. If you need more because of either the market or how the building's going to be used, that they don't contribute. That 80% doesn't contribute. So what ends up happening is at the end of the day, and we won't really know till the end what the full, the effective reimbursement rate is, but we have a pretty good prediction right now, and it's around 56%. So that 80% isn't for everything, it's only for the things that the MSBA will contribute to. So when you mix it all together, it comes up with 56%. That's a big point of confusion for many communities and the public at large. So we always take a moment to kind of explain that. And we can talk more about that later during the Q&A section. So if the MSBA contributes the let's say 64.3 million, then that means the remainder is for the district. And so round up to 50.5 million. So that takes us to our next slide. All right, well, so this is just a pie chart showing that breakdown where the MSBA is contributing a little more than half. Next slide. So the 50.5 million, most of that will be borrowed. And then the debt service, there are two pockets of money that we're counting on to pay for that debt service. One is $2.4 million per year that I believe was a retired debt service from some previous project. And that plus revenue from the 0.75% meals tax that the City Council instituted last July. So that's the money coming in, that's the total that we're gonna have to pay, and then the rest is just a matter of coming up with a borrowing scheme. Next slide. So project schedule. If you look at that red arrow, that's where we are today. You can see we're getting close to that close to the end of the design and bidding portion. So the design will be done, as I mentioned, in the early summer. We'll do bidding, which will take us to mid-fall, and that's when construction will start. Construction is a multi-step process. The first step is to build the new school. So we build a new school. Once that's all done, then the students and staff can move in and administration can move into that new school, start using the new school, and that allows us to abate and demolish the existing school. Once that is abated and demolished, now we finish the site. So it's these kind of multiple steps, and that's pretty common for new school projects in Massachusetts. Essentially, as a state, as a Commonwealth, we've used up all the prime pieces of real estate, and so now this build next to the existing and then demo and then fix the site, that's sort of what everybody's doing. Next. Oh, and sorry, can you go back? And so then the students will be we're aiming for fall 2028, and then we're aiming for done with construction activities fall of 2029. So those are kind of like the two key milestones. Go ahead, Narita. And actually now I'll turn things over. This is another fundamental document or foundational document that Narita can talk about.
Sure. So like Greg mentioned, the MSBA has a space summary. So it's a chart that goes space by space as to what they expect an elementary school to have. And so you plug in the number of students that they've allowed. So for us, it was 610. And that gives you the number of classrooms, special education spaces, and administrative offices, et cetera, that are, that's all the guidelines that they have. Anything that is an added bonus or something that's added, like OTPT space, because it's needed for that particular program that you have at your school. Those spaces are evaluated by the MSBA during the feasibility study to see if they will contribute towards that. And most of those spaces, were allowed for us to have them. And like Craig mentioned, were contributed, the funding contributes to those spaces. So just so we know, like, we didn't add any spaces that were not needed for the educational program that was included by the superintendent. So every space that's in the school is basically, was vetted through by the district and the building committee in order to create the building that you need for the next 50 years. And so, we wanted to make sure that it met the requirements of the MSBA, but it met the needs of the city of Leominster. So now I'm going to go through the site analysis that we did early on. So this is an overall site of the existing school. As you can see, Fallbrook is right in the middle of that plan with Samoset up the hill from DeChico Drive, for those of you who know the site. The yellow is the sort of the property line for our site. And the constraints that we had are sort of the wetlands, the Fallbrook that goes through the site, and of course the protected habitat for rare wildlife, which is actually the box turtles. So we had to sort of work within those constraints, in addition to the grade changes that happens between where the Fallbrook school is and Samoset. There's a big hill. So we looked at those challenges in order to create different options for the site. So during the feasibility study, we had 4 different sites that we studied. Site A is the one that we ended up with, which is adjacent to the existing school. Site B was thought to do a school sort of up the hill near Samoset, because there was some land available there. Site C was outside of the property line, so it was somebody else's property, so the city would have to buy the property in order to build it there. And then Site D was an existing play space. They use it for soccer mostly by the Park and Recs area. Mm-hmm. The school would have fit there, but the parking and the drop-off would have to be on the other side where the existing school was. The other thing is Site C was also within the protected habitat area, so that was sort of it would have been difficult for the state to allow us to build on that site. So given all those issues and all the other pluses and minuses, we also did a rough cost estimate per square foot of all the site conditions and all the different areas. So, and then we came up with A being the most advantageous for the site. So this is an early site layout. So now that we have where the building is going to sit, we started to sort of think about how can we fit the building within the site, thinking about solar orientation of the building so that we have most of the daylight and good orientation for the classroom spaces. And we'll go through that in a little while. But we started sort of planning out where parking could be, separating buses and car drop-off, playground areas, and sports fields. And this is the proposed site design as we have it today. The building on the white area is where the existing building is going to be. We have off of the Chico Drive, which fit after you cross the Fallbrook, there'll be 2 driveways. One driveway will be for the parents to drop off their kids. And one of the things we sort of worked on really hard was to try to make that as long as possible to take as much traffic off of the Union Street. And then the bus drop off is the smaller but equally important loop that's in the front. So it's important to keep those separate, so at least when the buses are leaving the site, you're not sort of mitigating. I mean, you still have to come together at the Chico Drive. We also understand, the Chico Drive having access to Samoset, it was important not only for the traffic within Fallbrook, but also for first responders and other people that go up to Samoset to have a clear drive up to Samoset. Right now, you have to drive through the parking lot to get there, and it becomes really cumbersome and dangerous for some people. So now we're going to realign that road a little bit and make sure that it's easily accessed to Samoset. The other areas that I wanted to just point out really quickly, we have 2 playgrounds. One playground is for the larger kids, 1st to 5th grade, and then we have a smaller playground for the kindergartners. They're co-located in the same area, but they have different equipment that are correctly sized for the age group and the developmental abilities of the children's age. We have an outdoor learning space in the back, and then the field that's currently taken up by the new building will be recreated adjacent to the parking lot. There's a hardscape adjacent to the gym. We'll go through the floor plans in a little bit. And then, so where our building is sort of sitting or fitting within the site, but there is some cutting into the hill that between Samoset and Fallbrook. So we have a retaining wall here in order to create that space to fit the school. And I also wanted to point out that the dashed line is the existing school that will be demolished. I just wanted to show the relationship of the new and the existing school. Going back to the site real quickly, I just wanted to point out last fall, one of the things what we had to do was repair some of the sewer and culvert that were damaged during the storm in one of the things was the sewer was damaged in 2023. This was brought to our attention as something that needed to be quickly repaired, and it was because it was on our property. It was determined by the building committee that we needed to do it as quickly as possible to not allow any more issues with a broken pipe there. So the sewer pipe was replaced in last fall, as well as the culvert that goes underneath the Chico Drive had shown a lot of wear and tear over the years. So it was, instead of replacing it, we relined it. All that work is part of the $114 million that Craig just mentioned. That cost is included in that budget. So I just want to sort of quickly show, this is where the sewer lines were removed, and then it was replaced here, and then the culvert lining happened here. And these are some of the construction photos and some of the engineers looking at the existing site after construction. There will be some work there's some reseeding that has to happen in the spring, and some repairs that will finish that job. All right, now for the fun part. So the floor plan. So this is the building sort of oriented. This is the classroom build. This is where the hill is on this side, just sort of orient everyone else who's online. The main entrance is here facing the parent drop-off. We have the gym to the right, and right off the entrance is the administrative offices. We worked through with both the fire department and the police department and your team of security experts in the city to come up with the best solution for the vestibule, how to come in. So for visitors coming in, it might be a little hard for you to see it on the screen, but there are 2 vestibules. One vestibule allows for all the students to come in at the beginning of the day or leave at the end of the day with multiple doors that open. There is a smaller vestibule to the left, and you would have to be buzzed in by the person at the front desk. And once you come into that vestibule, you're still sort of locked in. You can't come into the school yet. You can speak to the person at the front desk if you're dropping something off, or someone's your kid's lunch is left behind. You can drop it off there. You don't have to go into the school. If there's something you need to speak to someone inside the school, then they would be let into the main office instead of going directly into the lobby, which will lead you into the school. So there's several layers of security that was really important for all of us to feel safer for the students and the staff in the school. Now we have a lobby here, and the other shared space that we've talked about a lot with the building committee is the cafeteria. It's a cafetorium, so there's a platform or stage, which will have AV equipment with a projection screen and a projector. The kitchen is located to the left of that. And then we have the nurse's office near the main office, but down the hall a little bit. The brown spaces are the back of house spaces, the receiving area, janitorial spaces, and storage. Once you go through the lobby, there is another lobby where the music room is located, OTPT. You go up a ramp where there's the STEM room and the media project space, which I'll share with you what those looks like in a minute. And then we have the classroom building. The classrooms are sort of, they have we call them little neighborhoods or pods. So the reason for that is we want all the grades. There's 5 classrooms per grade, general and classrooms per grade. We have project spaces and resource rooms within each of these pods that are shared. So you see first and kindergarten and second are on the first floor. So there's spaces for pull-out spaces as well as a special education classroom, sensory room, ELL spaces, and testing rooms. We also have spaces for the teachers. There's a workroom and cafe or a little lunchroom for them to work. And then on the second floor, you come up the main stair, the round stairs, and then we have 2 art classrooms off of the stairwell, and then the media center or library. That's going to be the central space for the second floor. That will be kind of the hub there as well. Guidance offices are on the second floor. We wanted to allow for some of the administrative offices to be on the second floor to have that second pair of eyes, and in case something's needed on the second floor, we have 3rd and 4th and 5th graders there with a similar organization of the classrooms, all of them in pods with shared spaces for project and resource spaces. All right, and then we're going to go through some of the 3-dimensional drawings that we've been working on. So this gives you a good view of what the school's going to look like when it's done. This is the main entrance. We have a canopy here. The parent drop-off is here, and then the bus drop-off is here. I should also mention when I was looking at the plans that there is a secondary exit here for the buses. So in the afternoons, the kids will be sort of gathering in the cafeteria and will be let out if they're on the bus through this exit, where as opposed to the main entrance is for the car pickup. This is the gymnasium here, the cafeteria volume, and then the media center volume. So all these spaces are the sort of the taller 1.5 or 2-story spaces that we have throughout the building, and those are also the communal spaces that are shared. The cafeteria and the gym will be open to the rest of community. That was really important for the building committee to make sure that those spaces could be shared and closed off in the evenings or weekends. And the idea for the materials is to have to break down this building. This building is going to be at least a 1/3 larger than this existing school and being 2 stories. We started to sort of create these little different levels. So the second floor is the metal panels with the windows, and the first floor we have brick and granite with very simple window openings. We just wanted to sort of create these different scales so that it doesn't appear as large. This is the school entrance, sort of celebrating everyone as they come in with the canopy, having a wood look material in the front, and then again having some metal siding, sort of reminiscent of some of the more industrial look that we see in some of the parts of Leominster. This is the courtyard that's being created. This is a classroom where the 2nd graders and the 3rd graders are on this wing. This is the music and art rooms are here, and this is the cafeteria. So we're sort of creating this courtyard that could be used for the students if they have if the school allows. They could be sitting out there for lunch, but it could also be another amenity for the community to use when the cafeteria is being used. And this is a view of the hardscape. Again, this is the entrance entrance and exit off of the gymnasium and stairwell. But you'll have basketball hoops, foursquare, and all sorts of lawn games for the students to play outside, as well as some bench areas. Now we're going to go inside the building. This is, like I mentioned to you, this is the security vestibule for visitors, and this is the main entrance at the school. And this is looking back towards the main entrance with glass looking towards the office, the main office here, so that the main office can also see what's going on in the lobby, because that's really important to, not only for the students to be seen, but for the staff to see what's going on. To the right of the entrance is the gymnasium. This is a graphic that is being developed. It is just some cute things, but we've been looking at how do we integrate some of the fun things that we know about Leominster. This is in the works. But the gym has two sets of doors, and then as you're walking down, this is the main lobby. As you're walking down to the right is the lobby with the stairs, which we'll see in a little bit.
In Narita, those are the doors that could be closed off to separate?
Yes, thank you, Craig. So these sets of doors here are the doors that can be locked over the weekend if the gym or the cafeteria is being used by the public. There's restrooms within adjacent to the gym, so those are for everyone to use. And this is a quick view of the gymnasium. We're sort of thinking about, again, some color and graphics within the gym, having sort of expressed the structure with the color and bringing the Fallbrook Falcon colors here as well. The gymnasium is going to have retractable hoops, except for the ones that are closer to the wall on this side, but everywhere else they can be retracted. And some of them will lower down for the younger students as well. This is looking at a view of the cafeteria. This is a stage area where there'll be a stage curtain, but there's also going to be a projection screen there, and the cafeteria dining, and the windows to the left is where the courtyard was that I showed you earlier. And now we've passed those double set of doors that Craig just mentioned we can lock for the weekend use. And we're going up the ramp to go to the level of the classroom wing. And to the right is going to be the OTPT. Again, this is looking back at OTPT here, and this is the main stair. Bringing some warmth with the ceiling tiles, the ceiling being wood, and having some nice tile patterns on the stairs as you go up. And then before you go upstairs, I wanted to just show you quickly the STEM room and the media project spaces. We work through this a lot with the librarian, the science teacher, and others in the school to think about how they could be utilized either separately or together. The media project space could be sort of almost like a mini maker space where you can have 3D printers or other sort of activities as things and the curriculum gets developed. And the STEM room is for your science teacher. They teach all grades at Fallbrook. So we wanted to have a separate room, but the science teacher was excited about potentially having sort of something that opens up so you can use both spaces. Like the students would like plan a project in one room and then work on the project in the other room. As well as that's also could be an amenity for other teachers to use throughout the year. So having cords that have ability to have power, so if there's any kind of power related, equipment that needs to be used. And the same goes for the STEM classroom, and having some shelving and space for projects to be on display. Now I'm going to go through quickly. These are the classroom setups. So this is the kindergarten classrooms. Those are the larger of the classrooms. They're about 1,200 square feet. We have cubbies in the classrooms that are right within the classroom, but we also have, all the classrooms have storage, both tall storage and low cabinets. So the teachers have plenty of built-in cabinets for them to use. There's also cabinetry all along the exterior wall where the windows are. So those are either open shelving or low cabinets for all the equipment, especially in kindergarten, they have a lot of things to store. Equally so the classrooms on the first floor, so kindergarten first and second grade, The cubbies will be inside the classroom. That was decided by the school. That was preferable because of the age of the students. So this is just quickly looking at it. This is where the students would come in. To the left, to the right of it, this sinks. There's a handicap sink and a regular sink, shelving and upper, lower storage, and then there's some windows that allow for some light to come in and but they're high enough that above 6 feet so that people cannot peer into the classroom. Equally for the second floor classrooms, we have the lockers on the outside of the classroom wings. So the students are older and they can handle the lockers. There's lower lockers and taller ones, so depending on the grades. And then we have a smart screen, whiteboards everywhere, and pin-up space throughout. And as we get to the second floor, we go up the stairs. The arts classroom is to our right. And then as you're looking down towards the corridor, this is the media library, against the big hub at the knuckle of the school. It's really important for us to sort of celebrate not only like books or what other activities the librarian is going to be having there. This is to the left is there's some peekaboo windows here. There's two little nooks that are within the library, not only reading nooks, but they could be sort of smaller group activities that could happen within there. These are the doors going into the library. As you can see, we're sort of trying to also think about how do we bring and show the high spaces that are sort of being designed. Our library in particular, we wanted to bring some wood frame at the high roof, and this is metal on between the beams. We just are painting it to sort of mimic a wood ceiling. But having lots of shelving against the wall, there's a teaching space as well, because the librarian always has the classes when she starts, they need teaching areas. And then we have the check-in room, the check-in desk. And like I meant, these are the two cubbies to the left and the right of this office space for the librarian. Bringing in lots of natural light was really important, so having those high windows for the library. That's it.
Thank you, Narita. Very exciting. So just, I always like to end with next steps. Some of these things I think I mentioned at the beginning, but the design's going to be wrapping up. Actually, we've done 3 cost estimates so far, and there's 1 more to go. With each cost estimate, we're able to get more and more confidence that we know what the likely cost of the project of construction is going to be. So the next and final is in April. Then we've got that early site package that Greg was mentioning. That'll be this summer. We'll also complete the bid documents this summer, and that's for the main project. We'll bid that between August and October. We'll award a contract in October, and then construction on the main project will begin either late October or early November, kind of at the general contractor's availability. And then I think that might be it. Oh, and then just some outreach. So our number one way of sharing this information with the public has been, we have a project website that Left Field hosts. That's the QR code. The website is fallbrookproject.com. That's sort of our main mechanism of communication, but we're also doing some in-person events. We've got 2 coming up. The Fallbrook is having a talent show next Thursday, 5:30. So Narita and I or our colleagues will be in person and trying to engage parents, engage students, share some of these images, get them excited about it. And then we have a similar thing on April 30th, the Fallbrook Spring Concert. Early on in the project, we tried having standalone meetings, but they weren't very well attended. I think everyone's very busy, with activities and other things going on. And so I think it was the mayor's idea. He said, meet people where they are. So when we know a group is getting together, we show up, we bring some images, and we just chat up anyone who's willing to listen to us. And then we may also do present at a school committee meeting, possibly in May, but that's still being worked on. And I think that's it.
That's it, yes.
All right, so I think we've got a good half hour.
Awesome. Thank you guys both so much for all of your hard work in the presentation. I have two things that kind of were sparked by the presentation, then I'll go to the rest of the council as well. The first is, can you just talk a little bit about, because I think it's important for the rest of the council and the public at home watching too, how students are going to be kept safe when construction is going on right next door?
Absolutely. Do you have any of the slides in the back? So we thought that might be a question. So while Nereda's pulling those up, I'll say that.
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, that's no problem.
Sorry.
I can talk through it. So this is a common situation. So general contractors, design teams, and OPMs, we deal with this a lot. And the primary mechanism is to keep the two separated, right? So that safety through separation. So what that looks like is first, the entire construction site will be surrounded by a 6-foot fence. And that'll have, I think we're putting a scrim on that as
We
well.
are, yes.
A scrim is kind of like a screen that obscures vision and helps a little bit with acoustics as well. So step number 1 is we encapsulate the entire construction area. Step number 2 is we try to separate out bus traffic, car traffic, and construction vehicle traffic. And we do that 2 ways. One is using time. So at the busiest times, drop off and pick up, we'll have what's called delivery blackout periods. And so those will be times that the contractor and subcontractors cannot have deliveries come to the site, right? So that we give the priority to the school buses and the parents who are dropping off and picking up. The other thing that we can do is try to physically separate them. And the building committee actually had us hire a construction manager to take a look at this project and give some recommendations on phasing and other things. And that was one of the things they recommended, is doing a temporary road that loops around, comes off to Chico right near that Fall Brook, that culvert, and then loops around the back of the existing elementary school, so that construction vehicles are using that route while parents, teachers, and buses continue using the existing drop-off areas. So we separate the two as much as possible. Other things, dust is always on everyone's mind. Construction sites are dusty places, but what we do is we put into the contract that the the general contractor needs to manage dust, and there's a couple technologies. They're actually pretty simple. One is a water truck. So whenever there's dirt exposed and they're working on the site, they will regularly drive around sprayer trucks, and that helps keep the dust down. There's also dry compounds they can sprinkle if water is not most advantageous. Then they can use these dry compounds. Same thing, it keeps the dust down. As far as acoustics, construction sites are generally noisy places, but what we do is we'll work with the general contractor to try to make the noisiest activities when the students aren't, say, doing like testing, like MCAS testing. We'll try to coordinate that, work back and forth, so that even though it will still be somewhat of a nuisance, we try to minimize that disruption.
Thanks, Greg.
Absolutely.
The other question I have might actually be for Jen. Do we have any idea how the meals tax has done so far for Leominster? It's okay if you don't have the answer, because I know this is out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, the first quarter we had $92,000, and the second quarter we had $321,000. So we were hoping for 325, close, but not quite where our target is. I'm hoping it will, it's new still, so we're still hoping that it'll pick up throughout the months, and we'll see how the next couple quarters do.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, with all the construction downtown, Jen, I think business is way off. So I would expect that when that construction is done, I think restaurants are going to get back to the levels, of diners that they had before all the parking has been closed. So I think it'll do much better, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Some of the first quarter was before it was shut down, so I'm hoping that just people hadn't gotten on board yet.
I was going to say, do you think some of that has to do with people just not knowing that they were supposed to institute this?
Right, and they'll find out December when they get a bills.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, which is unfortunate, but I do wonder if maybe that's why we're a little bit off from where we want to be. But because I know that's a big part of how we are closing the gap here to get this done.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councilor Noseworthy first because she's the other member of the committee.
Thank you, at-large counselor. My youngest is 19, but as a mom, thank you so much for this beautiful presentation and everything that you've chosen to weave into the environment for the teachers and for the for everyone, all the staff and the kids. My two questions were this, and you may have gone over it, but I just wasn't sure. Because there are 2 floors, is there an elevator or a lift?
There's an elevator, yes.
Okay, I figured there was, but I just wanted to
apologize. I should
clarify
have
for those
mentioned that.
watching at home that was true. And then, I guess for our edification, obviously I haven't been involved in this project, but it's certainly before you have the meetups with the public, I think it might be helpful to have an infographic around, it's really confusing, right? When it's like, well, 80% of things will be covered, but really it's 50 because we're going to cap out at this. And I was trying to follow what you were saying. And I think that might be helpful before you have those meetings with the general public, and probably for us, because I know that number was something prior to this meeting that people were like, wait, how much is being covered? So I know that was a bit of a hot topic. So I think if you could clarify that would be really helpful.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to say is I just wanted to thank you for your attention to detail for security, for the staff and the students, and the egress of emergency vehicles, especially with the world that we're living in today. I really appreciate that attention to detail around safety. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other members of the council with questions? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr first, and then Councilor David Cormier.
Thank you. I had a quick one about that's all right, yep. On the cost, it's 114 million, right, in total, and then 89, almost $90,000 is construction cost. What's in the 24?
So
That difference?
Yep.
24 million.
Great question. So there's a lot of things in that.
Okay.
So one is professional fees. And so the fees that go to my office, the fees that go to the design team, that's in there. The cost of furnishings and equipment and technology is in that.
Above the 1,200 limit per student, or?
Well, so I think with furnishings, we're keeping it close to the 1,200. With technology, unfortunately,
technology.
1,200 is insufficient.
Okay.
And it's 1,200 for furnishings and 1,200 for technology for a total of 2,400 per student.
Okay.
And so the furnishings, it's pretty close.
Okay.
Technology, unfortunately, it's just more expensive, and so the MSBA has capped their involvement. So there is additional that will be just 100% on the district.
Yep.
We also have some big buckets of money for emergencies. So we call them contingency funds.
Sure.
Yeah, and so that's built into there. Some miscellaneous costs. The permitting fees have been waived, but there are some other things like printing costs, things that don't really have any other buckets are in there.
And they're not reimbursable from the MSBA?
Many of them are. Many of them are.
Okay.
Sorry, I may have misunderstood the question. I thought it was about the.
It is, you know what, no, you're right. It's just the difference between the 114 million and then the 89, almost 90
Yeah.
million in
Yep.
construction costs.
Yep.
Okay.
So we call the construction costs hard costs,
Okay.
and everything else we call soft costs.
Okay.
And there's a very detailed breakdown of that budget that the MSBA, it's an MSBA form.
Okay.
And that's what we developed and submitted. It was approved. It's part of that project funding agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And then we track that. Part of my job is I track that. So as expenses come in and get paid, we say, all right, which line item is this from? And it's usually pretty obvious. And the way the MSBA, it's a reimbursement process. So each month, the city is paying the bills. We submit those, package them, submit them to the MSBA, and then they review them, and then they issue a reimbursement check.
Good.
And so each month, we submit the expenses and then get a reimbursement.
Good. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the presentation as well, and the detail is wonderful. Thank you.
Councilor Cormier?
Thank you very much. I went to some of the meetings that you had at Fallbrook when this sort of began in the cafeteria, and it kind of sounds like the design, was kind of what was presented then. I don't think much has changed.
That's right.
It doesn't seem it from what I've, heard. But one of the questions I have is, again, around costs. Councilor Shalfo's effort touched upon it. If we were in a position where, the powers to be said we need to trim back a little bit on some things. For example, we built a new police station, and part of it was we were going to have a gun or a firing range down below, and costs were getting well.
That was my thing.
Costs were getting a little high, so we had to, that it's not there. That we had to cut back on it. So if we were in that situation with this school, what would some of the things be that we plan on doing here, but we can do without?
So there's not much. So that 114.8 million, that's the agreed upon. Both MSBA and the city are locked in on that. But what could happen, I hope it doesn't, knock on wood, is that if costs rise, construction costs rise, we're still locked into that 114.8 million. And so there are a few places where we could trim back. I hate to say it, but like finishes is one. If this goes out to bid and it comes in higher than the cost estimates, what happens is the design team and the OPM go and they look and they say, all right, where can we, the term is value engineer, where can we reduce the costs? Finishes is one place, which is not ideal because you want durable, high quality finishes. Yeah, you don't want to cheap out because then it becomes a maintenance issue. But if push comes to shove, that's one place. Another place, the landscape is also something that oftentimes is kind of low-hanging fruit. We hate to do it because the landscape is the first thing that everybody sees when they approach the building. It's part, as you can see, it's not just pretty. It is something that the kids are going to interact with, that the staff and students are going to use all the time. So we try not to do that. But there are a couple of little places where we can reduce costs if needed.
I think one of the biggest differences is when we did the police station, it's more of an internal project where, one of the first slides that they sent in, and they said that Narita had to design to this plan. So, they sent a plan to MSBA, and then they had to create a design to it to meet all of MSBA's guidelines. So how many classrooms, the size of the classrooms, there's not much left in the design, because when we went through the process, we would ask the same question that can be modified at this point. It's all pretty much down to like the required items, same thing with the spaces of the cafeteria and the gym, those are exactly the mandated size for the amount of students that are in the building. No bigger, no smaller. They're just exactly what, we're required to have.
And a lot of that's based on fire code too, right?
Some, but it's more
In the
based on
classroom.
SBA standards.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And one of the other things too that I think was noted before is you can't try to project future growth either. We can't say we're gonna build for, the year 2055, right? Because I think that was mentioned at one of the meetings at Fallbrook, was like, are we planning for the future, or are we gonna open our doors and find out we're too small in 5 years? But the MSBA will only allow us to project so much, right?
Correct. But there is a lot of flexibility built in. So right now, the school, I think, has 675 students. And so we say, well, why is the future projection for 610 students? And that is because those 675 students are really squeezed into a school that's too small for them. The existing school is about 71,000 gross square feet. The new school, designed with modern standards of space and accommodations for 610 students, is almost 105,000 gross square feet. So you can imagine a future where the projections are incorrect, 610 is not enough. You can very comfortably fit into that school 700 or more students and still have way more space. So the design enrollment is a little bit of a tricky concept. It's that they've got to put a number to it, but the space per child for schools nowadays is much more than the space per child back in the 60s when this school was designed. So there is, when I say room for growth, there is plenty of extra classroom space, extra cafeteria space. It's way bigger in all aspects.
Okay. Just a couple more things. The rendition you showed of the courtyard, it looks like it's, at the high school, we have a courtyard. It's completely surrounded by the building. No one can get in there, no one can get out, unless you want to scale the building, you're not getting in
Right.
or out, except to go in the doors of the building. This one looked open. Is it gonna be
It
open
is.
so somebody can get in there from the outside?
Yes,
Okay.
it is open, as you can see on the floor, on the
I mean,
site
that's-
plan, this is open here. Enclosing that courtyard, there's not a lot of space here right now. We talked a little bit about this with the building committee and the working group. And it was decided it was best to leave it as is. Just so that everybody knows, we also are using security glazing on the outside of the building, so that all that glass that you saw in the cafeteria, is resisting someone coming in, is not completely bulletproof, but, it will take 6 minutes for someone to kind of come in to the building, which will be more than enough time for the police to come in, if that's an issue, ever. We hope that it never is, of course. All the doors will be locked from the outside. The only door that you can come into is the main entrance. That's specific for any school. You cannot leave the doors open. If the students are out there, they're always with the teacher or more, if they're ever allowed. Because this is like this is something that that Jeff Sullivan and the assistant principal and the principal will decide how to use that space. They might decide they don't want to use that space at all because of these things. But just so you know, the existing school has the playground, everything is open. There's nothing that's closed in, and they haven't had any problems as of yet.
Okay.
So,
And
Do
I
they
just-
have
And I just know that courtyard, it looks like it's kind of close to a road, and.
it's the Chico Drive, yeah, and there is a big drop actually.
It's not like it's sheltered, yeah.
Yeah, there's a big difference in height because the building's set higher than the road, so they're actually, the building's almost working as a retaining wall. So you're gonna, when you're driving up the hill, the height of the courtyard is a little higher as you're coming up.
I gotcha, okay. And one other thing, backup generators. Is there any plan for backup generators?
Oh,
there?
yeah, I should have mentioned that, yes. So number 11 that you see on the plan is the generator. Is size much bigger. One of the things we talked about with the building committee is we wanted to, we have, I didn't mention that, we have gas boilers in the building. It's a hybrid system. So the heat can be done by gas heat, but we also have a air source heat pump. So we have a electrified system as well, so it could go, which will have cooling and heating. But part of the generator was to back up, to allow for the school to stay. The reason for the gas heat was to allow the school to stay open in the case the power goes out, because there are some issues within the city of Leominster, I understand, with power generation and distribution, and sometimes there are some blackouts at the schools. They want to make sure, because of the, you're working parent, you can't be at the school within like half an hour if power goes out. So the goal for the school is to allow for the students to stay there for the remainder of the school day. There'll be enough heat, there'll be power, and there'll be electricity. It won't be, maybe it's not as warm as it would be otherwise, but it'll be more than warm enough for the students to stay in the classrooms throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah, my other thought too was, currently we use Francis Drake, that's the city, our plan, we use that in an emergency for a shelter. People that have no electricity at home, and they need to stay warm, or they're on oxygen. So I was wondering if, this would be able to become another site in the city. If we had an emergency and we had to evacuate people from their homes, they could be brought and put into, the gymnasium, and they could be able to cook and whatnot in the kitchen as well during, an emergency situation. and we could use this school just the same way that we do Francis Drake?
So the trick there is that so there are two categories of kind of emergency. One is a warming cooling center, and the other is an emergency shelter. And those both have some technical requirements that because you already have Francis Drake as your emergency shelter, they're not built into this project. Doesn't mean that it couldn't be retrofitted after we're done, but those, and I can't even remember off the top of my head what they are, but they're sort of like a robustness of systems. Those have not been included in that $90 million construction cost. So the idea is more what Nareda was saying, which is power goes out, you can keep the kids there and staff there, finish out the day, get credit for the day, send them home. If the power is still not on the next day, maybe if it's very favorable weather conditions, you could have the kids come back, but if it's middle of winter, you really couldn't. So it's mostly just to kind of cruise a slow drop off until the end of the day, and then everyone goes home. So while this building could potentially be used as a warm and cooling center or an emergency shelter, it's not designed that way.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there was a cost consideration for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Two quick questions, I guess along that line. Is there, and I don't know if there would be an alarm system or not, and people can call 911, but is there like a hardwired thing or something where somebody could press a button and contact the police department in case there was an emergency?
Yeah, at the main office there is.
Okay. And then is there actually, on the counselor's point, is there air conditioning as well or just heating?
There is air conditioning.
There is air conditioning, okay. That would be helpful, also thinking about summer programming. Not quite like the emergency piece, but I know some of our schools don't, have AC, and that makes a big difference for summer school. Thank you.
Any other members have questions? Council President?
Just because it's been brought up to me, and I'm not necessarily in opposition, but can you talk about the decision to have a poi pond for starting off at 100,000 initially, down to 60? Is there, I understand the theory behind it, but was that hard and fast with the committee to have that?
So the history of it is that the koi pond was something that was very important to all the teachers and the students, and so it was included into that educational program that we originally, that the school put together. So it was initially in the design, but once the first cost estimate came back, the building committee did feel uncomfortable committing to having that koi pond at the $100,000. So it was put into what we call an alternate. So you've got the price of everything that you need, and then you've got a couple alternates, things that would be nice to have. Either they can be taken out or added in. So the koi pond got put into that category as an alternate. So we continued to develop the design and study it, and in the most recent cost estimate, I think it was down to $50,000, so a little more definition, a little smaller, and it's still, not insignificant, but it's still being carried as an alternate. So not something that is in the project yet, but also not something that we've tossed out totally. And so that decision is one that is still to be made.
So to the councilor's point, that would be one that could be, well, it wouldn't be cut because it's not in, right?
You got it. It's kind of it's like a maybe.
Because I'm sure that's certainly not reimbursable.
So we don't foresee the MSBA having any problem with it because it is in that educational program that they agreed to. So it should be, so instead of $50,000 out of the city's pocket, it would be, what is it, 20,000, and $60,000 the MSBA would cover. And that is not just for the physical pond, that's also all the services going to it, power, water, drainage. So that 50,000 is kind of everything.
I know Fallbrook has the pond now in the front, but,
Yep.
I was just curious because it was brought up to me a couple of times, so.
Yep, the building committee was uncomfortable with committing to it, given that it is a big expense, but also not ready to kick it to the curb.
Now, during the construction phase, with the road going behind the building, Is that going to affect any of the soccer fields that the kids use?
That would affect, yes and no. It would affect the playground structure that's currently there. So there's a soccer field to the south or left side of this drawing, and that's where we're taking that over. That's going to be where the new school goes. That field will eventually be replaced by, I can't tell what number that is. Is that number 6? It's the big green rectangle. So kind of a replacement in the future. But during construction, you won't have access to it. So that road will loop around. It'll wipe out the existing play structures. So that's something that's in the current cost estimate is a placeholder for doing some kind of temporary playground. What that looks like, we haven't exactly pinned down yet, but that'll be for like the 2 years of construction. And then once we're in the new building, there'll be another temporary play area. So not necessarily with structures, but a place outside that is paved that the students can run around on. And then obviously once the full building is done, we'll have access to all the play areas. There is also, so no doubt this will be an impact to the rec department and general kind of sports and playing. That existing ball field, which is on the right side of the drawing, that's also going to be taken over during construction for the general contractor. They have to do what's called material stockpile. So they come in, they remove the topsoil. You got to put it somewhere. You can either send it off site or you can store it there. The actual building materials could be there. The contractor parking could be there so that the teachers can continue using their parking, and the parents and visitors can continue using their parking that exists. So it will have an impact on the existing soccer field, the existing playground, and that existing ball field. But what we're doing is we're trying to minimize those disruptions, keep them as short as possible so that that pain doesn't last too long.
And the last thing, which probably has absolutely nothing to do with the building and the construction, but I don't know if the building committee had any kind of discussion. I was on the Samoset building committee, and there was a large concern about the one entrance, one exit to that whole site, the 2 schools there. There was this discussion about possibly trying to go out through Holland Woods at some point as an emergency exit. And I know this has got nothing to do with the school building, but I just wondered if it was brought up at any point in time, that the possibility of trying to get another exit out of that site, if there were anything to happen from the Union Street side where you can't get into the school.
Mm-hmm. There definitely was some loose discussion about it early on, but we knew pretty quickly that that would increase the construction costs significantly and would be something that the MSBA would not participate in. So pretty quickly we sort of tabled that and said, like you had said, that's more of a general city community question and less about this school.
Yeah, I still think it's a big concern. That bothers me, but and I know there's nothing we can do about it at this point. We looked when we did the Samoset building, but
and it is a tough area. I
still worry a lot about that.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely, it is a tough site. I think it's like 90 acres. But a lot of it is very steep. A lot of it has wetlands.
Yeah.
A lot is protected habitat.
Yeah.
So it is that 90 acres shrinks down to a much smaller amount of kind of developable space.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go, we're getting close to time. It's on the agenda. I'm gonna see if the public has any question or comments that you wanna weigh in on. Come on up,
Do we have a
John.
microphone over there?
I think there's a microphone on the table there, John.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Just flick this. There you go.
Hi, good evening. I actually attended the early meetings you had at Fallbrook, so I have a couple of clarifying questions for you that some are budgetary and others are just construction. So I'll go to the construction first. I know there were questions asked at those meetings about future for solar panels installations, and you said that you were looking at the idea of having the basic infrastructure there, but panels were not part of the process, and they still aren't, obviously.
They actually are.
Oh, they are?
Yes, so now
Oh.
you do
They're in the
have
budget,
solar
yeah.
panels as part of the base project, and that was a
Okay.
requirement to go natural gas.
Oh, okay.
The energy code requires you to
The
kind of make
LEEDS
it.
program?
Not even LEED,
no.
the state building energy code.
Oh, okay.
Requires you to have on-site facilities for photovoltaic.
Oh,
And so
okay.
that's what we have.
So how much generation will that actually create, percentage-wise of the building? Do you have any idea
wish I
what
had
the
the
requirement
numbers.
was? You know, just,
We
because
don't-
this could dovetail potentially into the council's question about the generation
Yep.
issue with a generator not being capable of,
Right.
producing enough power to keep it as a safety place for the city. But maybe the combination of the two is what I'm thinking.
So,
If there was solar generation to go along with that.
So what we can do is, because we don't know off the top of our heads, but what we can do is we can
Yeah.
put that on the website and the
Yeah.
frequently asked questions.
That'd be great.
We'll do a question and answer
Yeah.
to put that information out
Yeah,
there.
I just think it'd be helpful, based on his question alone.
Yeah.
And also, so that the public knows, well, we're making a concerted effort to look at alternate energy, because this is a building that's, again, supposed to be built for 50 years, so we should be looking forward on that.
Yep.
The other questions I had go back to budgetary issues, and again, in the early meetings, I believe you stated that the cost for site work and the cost for the tear down of the existing building are not reimbursable by the state. Is that correct still?
So the abatement, so the removal of any hazardous materials,
Mm-hmm.
the MSBA will participate in some of it. They don't participate in the floors or ceilings because they think that's a maintenance issue that each community should do on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Demolition, they'll participate in that. And then the new site work, they participate, but up to a certain cap. It's 10% of the construction cost.
Okay, so only 10%.
Yeah.
So, but that's all reflected in the $90 million commitment by the city and the total $114 million. This is all
That's all in there.
encompassing. So there's not going to be any surprises
Right.
to say, well, the building's complete, but now we have to appropriate $2 or $3 million to tear down the old Fallbrook School and remediate it.
Correct.
As an example, that's all.
That 114.8 million
Is all inclusive.
Yeah, beginning to end,
All
every
inclusive.
cost.
And I know you mentioned, the term contingency fund, and there's always has to be a contingency fund, especially for a project of this status and size and scope. Can you give a rough estimate of how many $1 million is represented in the contingency fund?
Yep, I think it's
On the-
5 million.
5 million?
Yep, so
Okay.
5% is, so it's a little more than 5 million.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Because, I mean, you're obviously in a terrible position, frankly. I mean, we're all in a terrible position as a city trying to construct something like this of this magnitude under the current, fiscal constraints as well as the uncertainty of building costs. I mean, I don't know what the current number is per square foot for this building, what your estimate is.
Yep, it's about $850 a square foot.
Yeah, but,
Construction
with
cost.
everything that's going on with tariffs and cost of, material costs and transportation, all that's the unknown. I mean, you said that the last look you will have at a cost estimate before you actually put it out to bid is going to be this April.
Yep.
Only a month away.
Yep.
And that's a long time between April and October when the bids go out. I'm just trying to figure out how, if $5 million is really, do you feel it's adequate as a contingency, or should we be thinking
So there's actually
beyond
another kind of pocket of money that helps with exactly that. So the MSBA has us include escalation, which is kind of the construction version of inflation.
Okay.
They include escalation to the midpoint of construction.
Oh,
And so the cost estimators kind of do their best to look into the future and say, okay, well, we're going to include, I think right now it's like 6%, 5 or 6%. So it's another $5 million that's baked in to cover those
So you have wiggle
potential
room.
increases.
It's not going to solely fall on the contingency that you folks have built
Correct.
into the budget.
Correct.
Okay, because obviously that's a concern for everyone.
Yep.
Because we know that if you have to start digging into contingency just to build the building, then the things that are going to suffer first are going to be the educational needs of the
Yep.
building and the students. That's the most important thing. I mean, that's the thing I know you're working to protect, and the state wants us to obviously to protect that. They're not going to allow you to, jettison classrooms or major materials, but on the other hand, you don't want to be back to the wall and have to make some really tough choices at the end. You want to make sure you got a little bit of a cushion, obviously.
Yep, which is in there, yep.
Yeah, well, that's good. Thank you. Appreciate the update.
Thanks, John. Anybody else? One more time. Anybody else?
I just want to address the shelter thing. Well, two things. Greg Chapdelaine, purchasing agent for the city. You all know me. Good evening. One, the generation thing. When they talk about the generator for this school, that's nothing new. None of the schools have generators that can power the complete full building. None of our buildings, no one does. The thing would be massive. It would be as big as the auditorium. Literally, it's huge.
Yeah.
Craig can back me up on that. They have to give their presentation according to the rules and what everything that's, that are said. The reason why you can't use it, or you can't call it a shelter, is because officially, and if we're using MSBA money and whatever the state regulations are, I know what they are, not off the top of my head, but we've discussed this fully, is because then you have to make it, and that's what they're talking about, the robust additions. You have to make it an actual shelter, as if you had sleeping quarters for people and bathing quarters and all these other things. It doesn't mean when this is done and there's a terrible incident going on that the city can't go up there with like any of our buildings and open the door and people go in it. So people need to understand that. It's like Francis Drake. That's not a shelter. It's just a school. The fact that we put people in it, the senior center, they're not shelters, but yeah, we use them. So that needs to be understood, that. But we can't officially say that, because to call it a shelter and start using, and hopefully no one from the state's watching this tonight for some reason, but you're not supposed to say that because, it's not a shelter because you're not following whatever guidelines. Well, in the ice storm, if we need to put people in the building, we're not going to open it up. So just understand that's what they mean by that. So
Thanks, Greg.
they can't say that officially, so that's why I'm saying it.
Thank you, Greg. Claire?
Just real quick, Jen, and I know you probably can't answer this yet, but are you comfortable that we're gonna have the money available?
Like you said, I have no idea. I mean, it totally depends. I mean, it depends on how things come in when it goes out to bid. It depends on, how the construction goes. Knock on wood, everything goes smooth and it comes in $6 million under, and it'll be great.
So just so people know, the possibility is there that we might have to do a debt exclusion if something were to happen. We want to be honest about that and transparent.
100%.
Hopefully we will not.
Right. And we will do our very best to not have
Right.
to. However, with something to this magnitude you don't know. You don't know what you're going to run into until you
Right.
the project. Unfortunately, that's one of the things that we all talked about when we started this project. It's kind of, do you want the building? Okay, well, we will do our very, very best, but, sometimes there are costs to things, and, like I said, we'll try to not have that happen, but we can't predict the future.
Thank you. And just one more quick question for Craig. You mentioned the hazardous material and the demolition of the other building. Will the state, I think you mentioned that there'd be a possibility that they would pick up some of that? If it were, and the only reason I asked that is because I was also on the committee building for the addition to the high school. And right in the middle of it, we found that there was hazardous material in all the, inside the brick. The adhesive or whatever, however you hold the brick together. I can't think of the name of it right now.
The mortar.
The mortar, thank you. And that was all hazardous and was going to be a little over $1 million. I think Greg remembers that. We were panicking on that, but we had a great manager, and he really pushed with the state. They said no, and they pushed with the state, and they did cover. We would have had to come back to the public for a little over $1 million at that point. So I just wondered if they changed their position at all, knowing that that's a strong possibility in any renovation or a demolition, because 50, 60 years ago, you use those materials.
Yep. Yeah, and like you said, any building of this vintage is going to have hazardous stuff in there. Off the top of my head, I think it was the estimate for abating it was 1.6 million, and out of that 1.6 million, 800,000 were the ceilings and the floors, which MSBA says is category will participate in. If we went beyond that number, then perhaps MSBA would say, well, we're not contributing for the excess, but we do have at least their commitment to participating in $800,000 of that removal.
Thank you. What's that?
Alrighty, well, thank you both so
Yes,
much
thank
for
you
your
very
time
much.
tonight. Thanks for the update.
Absolutely.
I'm incredibly appreciative of it, and I think everybody else in attendance is appreciative of it. And I think, in the future, as we kind of get deeper in, I'd love to have you back again to kind of just keep the council updated on how the project is going, and I think it's good for the public as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Public Schools Subcommittee from the one member. All those in favor? We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And I will call to order we have a joint committee meeting with Legal Affairs and Ways and Means. I'm the Ways and Means Chairman. Here this evening is Councilor Brandon Robbins, and the third member is Councilor Pauline Cormier. So I will call the Ways and Means portion to order and turn it over to the Chairman of Legal Affairs to officially begin the Legal Affairs portion.
Thank you. This is the legal affairs portion of the subcommittee hearing regarding 37-26. Members of the Legal Affairs Committee include Councilor Romero sitting across from me, who is the clerk, and to my right is Councilor David Cormier, who is the third member of the committee. Do you want me to read the...
Yep, you can or I can, it's up to you.
Because we have almost a full city council here, I'm going to read the, this is a notice of the City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It's posted in the event that a quorum of city councilors is present at this standing committee meeting. If less than a quorum of the city council is present, no committee of the whole meeting shall take place. If a quorum is present, any such meeting shall be restricted to the standing committee agenda items listed above.
Okay, that same notice applies to the Ways and Means. And the first item that we will be handling jointly is 37-26. Carrie Noseworthy, Ward 5 Councilor, requests that the City Council adopt the following policy and establish a Human Rights Commission for the City of Leominster. So we had a meeting on this previously, and I think it was left that we were giving this further time. I know that was waiting for a referral back from the mayor. I have not heard anything. I don't know if the petitioner has any further updates for us before we begin.
Thank you so much, Counselor. And with regards to hearing back from the mayor, I have not heard back from the mayor either. I do have a few updates. I did speak both with the Mass Commission Against Discrimination as well as Maya, because I happened to be at a MMA event, and both stated that they had never heard of a municipality having to pay more for their insurance when they had a human rights commission. They weren't aware of any laws or policy around that. They said obviously anybody could, if a municipality gets sued by someone, of course your insurance goes up, but having a human rights commission, they were not aware that that would increase insurance. The Mass Commission Against Discrimination also let me know that in all of their work that they had done in Massachusetts, if there was a commissioner appointed to a human rights commission, that is a position that is typically not paid. So that is typically an unpaid role. I know people had brought that up as a concern. They also wanted me to know that for all 351 cities and towns, MCAD only has one full-time commissioner, and they currently only have 5 part-time commissioners who are paid $75 per day to do this work. So she actually thanked me for putting the petition in and said that they're appreciative when municipalities put in Human Rights Commission because they just don't have a lot of capacity right now. And she also reminded me that that DOJ had eliminated everything going on at the JFK building, so the EEOC is no longer in existence except for being online. Let's see what else. So I think that was several of the things we talked about before. Again, if there was a commissioner, one could be appointed, and they're typically not paid. Many times people who are appointed to commissions, even at the state level, are not paid for their roles. And then I just had a few things I wanted to add about when people were asking what a Human Rights Commission could bring. I think that a Human Rights Commission in our city can make a real difference because it brings fairness and accountability down to the level where people actually live their daily lives. It creates a clear local place for residents to turn without having to navigate complex state or federal systems. It also helps prevent problems before they escalate. I know my constituents are always concerned because government doesn't do a lot of things proactively, and constituents would like to see more of that. It could do so by promoting education, dialogue, and mutual understanding. And a commission could reduce tensions, improve community relationships, and strengthen trust between residents and local government. And that kind of proactive work is typically more effective and less costly than reacting after conflicts arise. Another major benefit is that it gives city leaders better information. So a commission can identify patterns and concerns and make informed recommendations to the mayor, city council, schools, leading to smarter and more equitable policies. And lastly, it signals that the city is committed to fairness, inclusion, and equal opportunity for everyone. That reputation can strengthen community pride, attract business and families, and reinforce the idea that everyone in the city deserves respect and a fair chance to succeed. And I'll kind of end with reiterating that this petition does not cost the taxpayers anything. So I know that was something I saw talked a lot about on social media. Thank you so much for the time.
Okay. Does the other member have any comments?
No, I don't have any questions or comments at this time. I guess I just look to the chair and the rest of the committee for what the direction is going to be moving forward.
Okay.
I have no questions. I'll get to my portion of it
Okay.
after. I think you have.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
No,
Madam
I just
President?
wanted to add, I did have a meeting with the mayor on Monday about a few different things, and I asked him if he was in support of a Human Rights Commission. And he feels strongly, he didn't say yes, he didn't say no, but he feels strongly that the city has helped a number of people. He feels strongly with the Spanish Center and Nettie and people that have had some issues, they've been referred to him. He's put them in touch with people. I mean, I don't know how extensive that is. That was just a general conversation. He just feels that there should be a lot more that's looked at before it's even considered at this point. So I'm not speaking for him. I'm just reporting what my conversation was with him. So whether he puts something in writing by Monday night.
Right, okay. I have not had a conversation with the mayor, about this. I'm waiting back for a recommendation, and so, I mean, I could, but I just feel more comfortable to be a little bit more formal, and open about this. I don't want to go have a private conversation with the mayor about this because it really should be, we should get a recommendation back from him. I'm not gonna have a closed door meeting about this. I don't think it's appropriate, so, but you know,
I want to reiterate, that was not the purpose of my meeting.
No, I
was there for a number of other things.
Right.
And because this was on the agenda, I asked him.
no, I understand, and as
I don't
president.
want it to be misunderstood that I went
Right.
in there looking for a closed door meeting about it.
No, and as president, I think it's appropriate, you know, you could talk to him, but as the chair of this committee,
Right.
you're looking for a formal recommendation to present, I don't want to have a closed, so that, I'm not saying you were, I think I'd be if I went and did that, so, that's the only reason why I haven't talked to him about this, but, you know, I will say that, you know, some of the things that come to my mind as well, you know, with the Human Rights Commission is just understanding, you know, how it helps in areas where we don't already have help. Like, for example, you know, if there's some kind of a, you know, hate crimes going on, we have police that handle that. If there's police brutality, we have the Post. Like this, so I understand that we have a lot, and we have a lot of agencies that deal with workplace discrimination already in the state. So, you know, I'm trying to understand, you know, how, or look for examples of things that have happened in this community over the past year where the absence of a Human Rights Commission was a detriment, and it would have been a help if we had them, so that I can understand, like, you know, what we would need in a Human Rights Commission. That's something that comes to mind. And also, too, you know, to the at-large counselor across from me, he made a comment in the past about, you know, there's not really much point in doing this if the mayor's not on board, and he's, as the appointing authority, isn't going to appoint members to this commission, which honestly, I don't know the answer to the question in terms of just because we have a commission established by ordinance, I don't think that forces the appointment authority to make appointments to that commission. For example, we've had a commission, we've had an ordinance for many, many years to have a cemetery commission, and he, as the appointing authority for the city for many years, did not see the need for one and didn't appoint one. And there's also, too, as I look in the ordinance book, we have water sewer commission. We actually have an ordinance established here for a bunch of commissions that don't exist. You know, for example, and I was just looking up some earlier, like a development and industrial commission, a capital improvement commission. There's a lot of commissions that exist by ordinance, but the appointment authority clearly does not have to make appointments to a commission if the appointment authority does not feel the need for one to address issues in that area. So to your point, we could spend a lot of time and a lot of money putting this together if there's no appetite for the appointing authority to make these appointments. That's kind of, we're kind of wasting our time. So that's why it's important to get his feedback as well. And I have not heard back, so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Councilor Rose.
I think I'll just add, you know, I can only speak for myself on this matter, and quite frankly, on any matter that's before us. And to me, the premise of this petition is a no-brainer, and we should be appointing people to this Human Rights Commission. I think to the chair of Ways and Means point, yes, we do have other avenues that people could choose to go. But I think some of the reason that you're not hearing reasons for why we need this are because people are not comfortable with those specific avenues. Just as I said with municipal aggregation, this is another option for people to bring their concerns to a body that may be able to support them, may be able to help them connect with those organizations, like you mentioned, the police department, the fire department, whatever it may be, that exist. And I think in a larger picture as well, just around human rights commissions generally speaking, I think that it's sometimes easy to just get lost in, like, this is for one certain demographic, whether it's people of color or people with a disability, but really, like, this is big picture. This is all of the things, people of color, people with a disability, veterans, you know. And I think that, again, just the inclusivity of it speaks to why it's important that we establish one here in Leominster, to be able to bring a place where all voices can be heard. So, you know, I still think, yes, we should hear from the mayor and hopefully soon. But at the end of the day, I do think personally, this is a no-brainer to me.
Okay. I'll go to the other committee first if you want to
Yep.
check with your members, and then we'll open up to the council.
I'll just, while you're still on the chair for Ways and Means, I will make my point. So here's my issue. I think not hearing from the mayor at this juncture is basically his recommendation. I think his lack of putting it in writing is his recommendation as far as this goes. That's my opinion, that's the way I take it. Now, everybody hears Human Rights Commission, Human Rights Committee. Yeah, of course, everybody wants fairness, everybody wants human rights, everybody wants accountability. But I don't think that the way this is proposed now is anywhere near ready to be at this spot in front of the council now. I think this is going to take months and months and months of work and research and development. I don't think it's fair to have it in front of us now. This is supposed to promote fairness and accountability, a local place instead of so they have somewhere local to come to in the city itself, promote education, strengthen trust, doing proactive work, giving recommendations, fairness and inclusion. Anybody that's going to say that that doesn't come as a cost to the city is wrong, okay? The way this is written now, it would have to be, for fairness and accountability, it would have to be a local place for people to be able to go. So somebody could come in and say, hey, I'm coming in front of this committee. The committee is going to have to take, you're going to have appointed members to begin with. The committee is going to have to take minutes. And somebody's going to come in and say, I feel as though A, B, C has happened to me, and 1, 2, and 3 are responsible for these things happening, and we believe as a group. So now that becomes a matter of record, and a matter of, it goes into the minutes, becomes a public record. Now, what gets done? Okay, so they can come here. What happens with it at that point? Are they just coming in, say what they want to say, get a referral to a committee that already does this and sends it out? Does that committee then come to the council? Does that committee then come to the mayor's office? So now it becomes a record of this. And this ABC, these people that are now accused of something, have their name out in public, and it's a matter of record, it's a matter of the minutes. Persons 1, 2, and 3 have their names out in public, out as a public record. If no action is taken, if they get nowhere, if somebody gets frustrated, what happens to that then? Does a complaint get made with the state? Does a complaint get made with the AG's office? Hey, I went to the Human Rights Committee in Leominster, I complained of A, B, and C. They referred me here, and nothing has happened since. So, as much as you want to say it's not going to cost the city anything, I believe that it has the potential to that. It has the potential to do that. These are people, they're businesses, their names are going to be put there, and if we don't have some kind of a structured way of handling this and making people aware, hey, we're not going to do anything with your complaint, you can come in and tell us, we're going to refer you to this company anyway. I think that can put the city in jeopardy. It's also supposed to promote education, pamphlets, that sort of thing. That's going to cost, and it might be a nominal amount of money, but that's going to cost the city money as well. So now we're talking, is this something that goes into the budget? Is this something that we're going to have to turn to the mayor to ask for any kind of funding? I think this and I'm not saying that it's not necessary, and I'm not saying it's not useful. Everybody believes in human rights. I believe in it. I just don't think, as this is presented to us, that this has what we need behind it. I think it's unfair that it's brought to us this quickly. I think something like this takes a whole lot of research, a whole lot of legal involvement to make sure that the city is covered, that we are covered, to make sure we have a mayor on board who wants to make these appointments, is going to make these appointments. I have taken the time, and at a suggestion of another council member, to read other human rights committee and other cities and towns, just to read their minutes. And I'm shocked by the lack of anything that they accomplished. Shocked by the lack of anything they accomplished in their minutes and what they report. And I think if we want to have a real and effective human rights commission, that we need to step this back, allow it to develop and to develop over time, and not rush into just doing this and figuring out as we go along. So that's my opinion. Under my position on Ways and Means, I will now step in as the Chair of Legal Affairs, and I will turn it over to Councilor Romero if you have any questions or opinions.
Thank you. Is this on? Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Is it on? Okay. So before I even begin to address my thoughts and concerns about this particular petition, I'd like to ask my colleagues, have any of you, while living in Leominster, ever been told to go back to your country, to go back home? Have you experienced racism in a public space or location? Well, I have twice with my children. One at a local supermarket where I was with my daughter, and I had an individual tell me I should read the Constitution so that I knew the laws of me, of all people. I could probably quote the Constitution. He didn't know where I worked. He didn't know what I did. In front of my daughter, hold up a pocket Constitution and say, you don't belong here. You should go back to your country. Mind you, I was born in Brooklyn, New York. A second occasion, I was driving on the connector with my son, and I had a Kamala Harris sticker on the back of my car. He pulled up on the side of me with the light, and the windows were down, and he started calling me an F&B for supporting Kamala Harris, and told me not to worry because when Trump got elected, I was going to be deported. Now, my son at the time was probably maybe 10, and he says to me, Mom, are we safe? Are we safe here? Why would he say that to us? So now, mind you, on two separate occasions, this is what we experienced. People telling us we were not welcome in a community that they were born in, that they were raised in. So the reason I bring this up is because I didn't file complaints of discrimination. I had to educate my son. I had to talk to my daughter. And I spoke to the manager at the local supermarket, and she told me it was a recurring theme with this individual, that this was not the first time he had done this to other people, which means I wasn't the only one who experienced this, right? So I share this because I later attended an event in Leominster where leadership says we don't have racism and discrimination in the city, where I experienced it around my children. And again, we still love Leominster. We still choose to make this our home, but on those particular occasions, my children and I did not feel welcome here in the city. And so my vision for a Human Rights Commission is to bring unity to this city, to bring acceptance, inclusion, a celebration of all nations, of all cultures. However, what is presented before us is very concerning. There's language in here, for instance, that talks about pedophilia. Pedophilia is not a protected class. It doesn't even need to be included. So when you're talking about, no person shall be unlawfully discriminated against, except if they define their sexual orientation by including minor children. Well, pedophilia is just not a protected class. So that in itself, the language is concerning. when we go on the other piece of this and we start talking about the investigative piece of this, it concerns me because it leads me to think that residents may believe that there is some authority that the Human Rights Commission would have that would protect them or would have the legal authority to investigate entities, whether it be public or private. And the reality is that they do not. A Human Rights Commission would not have the authority to require anyone to participate in an investigation. And so it would be voluntary. So in the end, if that person chose not to participate in an investigation, how useful? So a landlord, a private landlord, chooses not to participate in an investigation. What authority does the Human Rights Commission have to make him comply? None. A entity within the city, a city office or a city, public office, chooses not to participate in an investigation. They're not required to. So once again, how effective are we, or how are we being of use, or how are we being helpful to the community? Well, let's say they do voluntarily investigate or participate in the investigation, and they find in favor of the person who came forth with the claim. Well, then what? What authority do they have, or what happens next? Or if they find against the person who brought the claim, then what are the options? So none of this is really clear. None of it is spelled out. And I just don't quite, that it needs to be sorted out. In addition to that, I'm all about looking to our community to bring them in, the people who are outlined as the protected classes, who we want to help, as part of this. And their feedback and their input and suggestions should be built in to whatever the Human Rights Commission ultimately becomes for our community, because it is a community. It is a commission that is there to benefit the community as a whole. What I can tell you is that the conversations I've had with people, many different people, about a Human Rights Commission in Leominster, is that they've been approached, or they've been asked if they want to have a Human Rights Commission, and everyone agrees on the concept. We should all be treated fairly, everyone should be treated with respect, no one should be discriminated against. But they're not familiar with the language in the petition. They don't know what's been presented. So when I go through and highlight some of these things, they make it clear to me, well, that was not explained to me. So what that leads me to believe is that even more education needs to take place within our community to not only inform them about what a Human Rights Commission is, how it would function in our community, what they would like to see, but also what was presented should have been very transparent and clear to folks, rather than just, we want to form a Human Rights Commission, it's, this is what I'm presenting. And so with the language that's included here, with the vision that's presented here in terms of the investigative piece, and the process of filing grievances and so on and so forth, I can't support this petition. And as I've stated, I fully support the idea of a Human Rights Commission. I would love to get there. I just don't think I agree on the way in which this approach has, I don't agree on the way in which to get there at this particular point in time. And I do feel like it was submitted, hastily, without real concrete conversations with an inclusion from the same people that are outlined in this petition. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I speak?
Let me just, hang on, we're gonna go back to the petitioner, so Counselor Noseworthy.
Oh, so yes? Oh,
Yes.
thank you so much. To the Ward 1 counselor, I think I'll start with the investigative piece. This is not an investigative body, so that was made clear by, nope, there's one word, and if you look at the answer both of KP Law and everything I've stated in all of these meetings, it uses the word investigate, and I said we could change that to review, look into, get rid of it. I made that very clear, and if you look at the KP Law's response to that, they make it clear that this is not an investigative body. Regarding the pedophilia piece, I also stated that every sentence in this petition comes from other petitions from cities throughout the Commonwealth, and that was something that was stated in the majority of the petitions. My assumption is, I don't know if it came from an amendment or issues within the communities, but that they were making something clear before it became an issue. I really, there is no process of filing grievances. The examples that you gave would never exist because there is no investigative portion to this body. And I'm going to be honest, I do take issue with what you shared about the individuals that you spoke with and how they were approached, because I have worked extremely hard to be inclusive and to talk to people and to get their input, their ideas, their thoughts. I myself am a female veteran, and we are treated very differently than male veterans. And I myself am a veteran with 100% disability rating due to PTSD. So I take very careful care in talking to people. I'll share with the rest of the council that no one I spoke to, other than the people who came before us, other than some emails I have to read, felt comfortable coming forward. And I think that says a lot about our community. I myself have been through things within the city of Leominster, different than the Ward 1 counselor, but still very difficult with regards to myself being a disabled veteran, and I myself, chose different paths or didn't deal with things at the city level. With regards to the chair's comments about what would this do, well, Human Rights Commission looks at the intersectionality, because you could be a female, Black, LGBTQ veteran who speaks another language. And there is no one place that addresses all of that. A Human Rights Commission looks at the intersectionality of all those pieces. I myself, since I've been a city councilor, have also not heard back from certain individuals about trying to see if we could get donations for the food pantries in the city when we had the longest furlough of federal workers and were really taxed. I myself reached out and also got no answer about being more equitable with the ASL community with regards to things that the city does, how we could embrace them a little bit more. I myself didn't see any movement when constituents asked me to ask for the LGBTQ flag to be raised and I got one email, but nothing ever happened with that. I myself, in my role, have seen issues with people who are elderly and disabled and concerned about people who English is not their first language. And so I guess to the people on the city council who, don't have those levels of intersectionality, I'll tell you, people are scared. They want to belong in Leominster, so they don't say anything. They can't just go to one place, because none of us is just one thing. And a Human Rights Commission would address the intersectionality of those pieces. With regards to people wanting a Human Rights Commission, but I went about this hastily, I did not. I continued work that started with constituents from 2021. And like the Ward 1 counselor said, I will tell you, I was listening on the meeting in I don't even remember the year, but I'll look it up, where my predecessor said, there's no racism in Leominster. And if people make complaints, it's because they're trying to ruin people's careers. I'm a homeowner in Leominster. I'm also a female disabled veteran and mother of children on the autism spectrum. And you don't see the needs because people are exhausted and people are scared. I'm going to be honest, I thought I probably had a snowball's chance. And when I talked to other communities, they said, you live in Leominster, this is never going to pass. So I'm not really surprised by the things that I'm hearing. I'll just share that the need is there. I'll continue to do the work in other ways, but I did feel the need to clarify about the amount of time and effort I've taken with people and how they did not feel comfortable showing up. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Certainly.
I work in the community every single day, and I hear claims of racism all the time. People come to me and they tell me, I feel that I was discriminated against because XYZ. My son encountered an incident where I think it's a hate crime because he was beat up by someone, an adult, at the mall. I don't know where to go. I hear it all the time, so they do come forward. They come to those they trust, they come to those that they respect, and they come to those that they know are going to connect them to the resources that they need. So at the end of the day, if the Human Rights Commission becomes that, people will absolutely come forward. When you create that, but whether or not it exists, when you create that for that type of environment and that type of relationship for constituents in the community, regardless of their background, they will come. So it is a matter of opening doors and opening lines of communication, respecting folks, listening to them, taking their feedback, and then implementing whatever's necessary to meet the needs that they've expressed, not to meet our own needs. So while we can take that into consideration, what we are here as representatives is to represent the community and the people that elected us, not just represent our own interests and what we believe.
Point of clarification, Ward 1 Counselor, are you insinuating I don't?
Excuse me. Counselor Romero has the floor. When she's done speaking, you can speak. Thank you.
My final point being is, I know that the petitioner has stated that that this body will not conduct investigative work. However, I do not see an amended petition stating that that would be the case. What I see is the initial language that was submitted that says investigate reports of unlawful discrimination or harassment. So regardless of what KP law says, I'm looking at what's in front of me. And so unless there was an amendment that I failed to see, I see this here stating that the commission was gonna have an investigative component. And I'm happy, like, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Ward 1 Counselor, you are incorrect.
Okay.
Because you didn't continue a reading, and I thought, I could be wrong. Did everyone receive the email that I sent to the city clerk, I think?
It was mailed out twice, in fact. Counselor
Okay.
Frida had asked Liz to send it out. I received it that way. And then I actually had called Liz later in the day and she resent it out. So Counselor Noseworthy was kind enough to send out additional copies of the email.
Is that all the same?
Oh, this is
Yeah.
the one you already
it's
gave
the
me.
same one.
So
Yeah.
has the petition the language been amended?
No,
Is that what we're talking
no,
about?
there's been no amendments. No.
Okay, so that, I don't understand, you said I was incorrect. So what I'm looking for is, you state letter E,
Do we have copies of this
Yeah, right
email?
here.
Yes, it's on its
Sorry,
way.
thank you.
letter E,
Are these, why are they, oh, okay, because
It's
it's
two,
Yeah,
pages, yes.
investigate reports of unlawful discrimination or harassment which may deny or tend to deny equal access to or opportunities in housing, employment, education, public accommodation services, and facilities to any person or group, and provide information with respect to the agencies of the city or to the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination as appropriate. So regardless of what KP law is saying, I'm looking at what's in front of me, and it says, investigate reports of unlawful discrimination or harassment. So, unless that's amended, I'm going by what's in the petition. And is that incorrect? Should I not be going by what's in the petition? Should I be going by what's in KP Law's opinion? I'm asking for clarification because I'm a new council and I don't know.
Well, I read the email from Brian Riley. He does make some suggestions of how other cities and towns have done this and have done it. He actually warns against having an investigative component. So it's not an amendment, it was just a request for an opinion, and that was his that's his opinion, yes. If you were to go forward with this, these are some suggestions that I would make at this point. But it's not necessarily a legal opinion of whether or not he thinks it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's a few suggestions he would say to keep it within the legal parameters.
And for clarification, when he's making a suggestion, it is up to the petitioner to determine whether or not they're going to incorporate those suggestions or not.
That would have to be, yeah, amendments would have to be made, and I think
Right.
that we.
And I have yet to see an amendment, is my point.
But
So when
point-
you're saying, no, I'm incorrect, I want to just get clarification.
Okay. All right. Counselor Noseworthy, I'm going to give you the opportunity to reply. I just want everyone to keep in mind, this is a subcommittee hearing, so the priority is the subcommittee and what we're going to do with the subcommittee. I will open it up afterwards to the rest of the members of the council. This is not on for debate tonight. It's not on for anything. The meeting is Monday night. We can debate it Monday night. So with that, Counselor Noseworthy.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel like I've repeated myself several times in saying that I would be happy to ask for an amendment. I chose language, each sentence in this petition that was already, approved in other communities. So we have already talked about this in the past. So to me, I'm not stuck on the word investigate. I wrote the petition, so I'm telling you it's not an investigative body. And I'm telling you that's not the spirit. My point was KP Law also says, quote, looking at your petition, it does reference the HRC as, quote, investigating reports of unlawful discrimination. But it also states that information gathered would be passed along to other entities and agencies who have the authority to take action. This might include the MCAD, Police Department, District Attorney's Office, or the like. This is the approach I would recommend as an attempt to have any kind of mediation or formal dispute resolution procedure would be more complicated and potentially appear to be ruling on another's legal rights. And then he says, and this is the important part, as written, however, I do not see risk of that. So my point is, I wrote the petition. That was not my intention. It's one word. It's what other attorneys wrote. And I've stated since the beginning of this that I'd be happy to choose a different word, like look into, discuss, strike the sentence, whatever it happens to be. But even as written, even though it's maybe a poor word choice, it's not an investigative body. That's all I was saying, is that KP Law was reaffirming what I said as the author of the petition. Thank you for letting me clarify.
Thank you. Counselor Shalafo-Zephyr.
Thank you very much. So I'm I think a Human Rights Commission is a no-brainer. Having gone through the prior iteration of the Human Rights Commission that was submitted to the council, I think in 2021, and then when I tried to take it off the table, it was tabled at that time, and then I tried to take it off the table sometime after that, and it was a 5-4 vote that nobody would, the majority of people on the council at the time would not take it off the table for a discussion. I mean, I was appalled. So I read the petition and I thought, because I've talked to other people on human rights commissions and people in neighboring communities and communities a little bit further away. And there's some stuff in here that I think I agree with, and there's other things I think that, They may not make sense, in the petition. I looked at this as an initial proposition, an initial proposal that would go through a process of review and comment and research, and that lots of people, would have a say or the opportunity to voice their opinion about what they think would be important about having a Human Rights Commission in Leominster. I've talked, in my line of work, I've talked to hundreds of people who have felt mistreated in any kind of way you can imagine, whether it's based on their sex, their sexual orientation, their birthplace, their socioeconomic level. People feel mistreated or not feel mistreated, but are mistreated, for any number of reasons. And so I looked at this and thought, no, we need a Human Rights Commission. City of Leominster is really diverse. We all know that. We know what our schools are like. We know the people around town who, I looked at it as an opportunity to really provide education. We want to educate white people like me and Frank. I'm going to pick on you just because you're across from me. But it's an opportunity to educate people and about all kinds of things. It's not, I never thought it would be an investigative. I saw that word too, and I thought, oh God, we're not, that's going to be tough to do. We don't want it, we're not in the investigative business or the tribunal business, right? But we could provide information to people, we could provide places for people to go for information, and I looked at it as a real win-win. A couple of years ago, I don't know if anybody, did people remember the big parades we had downtown? I remember walking and talking to the mayor at that, and that's when we first talked. I talked to him about a Human Rights Commission, and he was all on it. Does anybody remember there were two big parades downtown. And it was all about kind of like protesting and human rights. But anyways, they were well attended. A lot of people were there. So this, I think I looked at this, as I said, as kind of an initial proposal. I, in my mind, thought, well, it would be great to convene a working group to have feedback from all, kinds of people from the community. And to the point of, we're waiting for the mayor's referral. Yeah, we are waiting for the mayor's referral. And he should provide one in writing and weigh in on this. And whether or not, we can speculate from now till doomsday, is about whether or not he would appoint people to a commission. But then again, that's on him. We're the legislative body. We can create the Human Rights Commission. He can staff it. He can provide appointments to it that we can confirm. But we don't have any control on that. We can just say, look, based on the people that we represent, based on what we know about the community, based on what people tell us, we think this is important. We want to propose it. We want to pass it. That's my job, certainly the way I look at it. I have a lot of notes here, and they're scribbled.
Okay. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, we're gonna wrap this again. This is our subcommittee hearing.
Okay.
So
May I make one more point?
certainly.
I think one thing that I find really disappointing is that rather than brainstorm and come in with a collegial attitude of, geez, you know what, this really might make sense for Leominster. We need to explore it more. And here's how we might make something that we don't like at the moment better. Here's something that we think we could make better because we know our own wards better, or we know we know whatever better. So that's, to me, is really disappointing. That, I think there's always room for improvement. But I think just being super critical, coming in and putting up roadblocks and not, but I mean, that's my experience of not only this particular subcommittee meeting, but some other conversations we've had both at City Council and in other committee meetings. So, if I don't like something, I'm really clear about it and I say why I don't think it's a great idea. But, it's hard to say, that you think something's a great idea, but, you know, this, and then pick something apart to death without being part of the solution. So, again, I think it's a no-brainer for a Human Rights Commission. I would be happy to help, you know, write something, construct something, facilitate something that would be amenable, you know, to people both on the city council and across the city. Because I think there's a lot of work that we could do that would be very valuable, based on my experience. Thank you.
Counselor, I'm sorry, Madam President.
That's okay. I'm not going to take too long, but first of all, just going back to your examples, Counselor from Ward 1, the one thing that a Human Rights Commission is not going to do is get rid of ignorance. It's not going to take ignorance out of anything. It's never going to be dealt with. There are people that are going to remain ignorant. There are people that are going to say things to people. We all, and I guess trying to think of what a Human Rights Commission would do in that particular case. Nothing. I mean, what?
So, but to clarify, I wouldn't be, in my mind, a Human Rights Commission would not be there really to address that. However, if this local supermarket says that this is a recurring issue with this particular patron, the Human Rights Commission could potentially work with the supermarket to help them better understand how to make the supermarket more welcoming and to discourage or to prevent that type of behavior so that people in the community
okay.
are not feeling exactly the
I don't disagree with that, but they should have an HR part of their supermarket as well, that if they know that that's being addressed, a Human Rights Commission isn't going to change that. The Human Rights Commission has got, I mean, their particular organization has to do something about it and want to do something about it. The other piece that I take a little exception to is saying that some of us, and the rest of the council, don't interreact with other people. I interact with people all the time. And to suggest that we don't understand as other councilors understand, I understand a lot of what goes on in the city. And I have, and I am not going to put myself in your shoes, but I have been working with veterans since I've been 19 years old. And Councilor Odinger has been working with veterans for a long time. I have never seen a female veteran mistreated in this city that I'm aware of. I'm not saying that you don't have that experience. And if you do, there are areas that I believe you can go and get some help with it. I don't think it needs to be a Human Rights Commission. One of the things that on the initial letter to Brian Riley, and I guess Leominster is Leominster. If we're going to do something for Leominster, it isn't Fitchburg, it isn't Greenfield, it isn't Attleboro. And to say I took 99% of the exact language from those ordinances crafted that I thought best suited the city of Leominster. You know, I go back to what I said the first night this came on, is that I feel strongly that we need to have a group of people from every segment of our population that wants to participate around a table and have the discussion that this is what they would like to see happen in the city of Leominster. People that are affected, like the Ward 1 councilor said, the Spanish community, the LGBT community, the Catholics, the Jewish population, the Baptist population, the Universalist population. Everybody's got to be talking to each other around a table and have a discussion face to face with each other. Not us going to talk to somebody and say, you know, how do you feel about this? Do you think we should have one? Do you think there's discrimination in the city? That's not going to work. And I'm not going to say what should be done with this, but my opinion is that this should be given leave to withdraw. And I'm just going to put that forward and deal with what I'm not saying I think it's a good idea for the city, but I think it's got to be done right, because I think there are a lot of ramifications if we don't do it right. And I think there are a lot of issues, a lot of ways that we can correct some of them, but they've got to be dealt with the right way. And I think it's not going to be, with this petition.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Odinger.
Thank you very much. The two chairs and the council president and the Ward 1 councilor have probably expressed my opinions more elegantly than I can, because I'm not a very good speaker. But anyway, I certainly agree with what is being said tonight, and I agree with the Human Rights Commission. But one of the things that I look at is sometimes, there's an advantage to being old. And although I wasn't around in, 1885, when a Chinese American girl, her parents sued the San Francisco Board of Education to integrate the schools, and she won. I wasn't around then, but I have lived through the 60s when we had all kinds of race issues. I also served in the Navy in a submarine, okay? We had blacks, we had a gay, we had Asians, we had everything. I grew up in the South where we had a racial slur for every single person you could think of. Catholics, Protestants, evangelical Christians, Polish, Italians, everything. I grew up in that society, and we have improved as a nation quite a bit over those years, but we're still not perfect. I had a social studies teacher that said that today it's called civics, said that America was great because of its homogeneity, that we were like a big salad bowl, that everybody kind of blended together and made America great. But today what I see is everybody having a plate with their segment here, my segment here, my segment here, and I see more divisiveness in this country in the last probably 5 to 10 years than I've seen in my entire lifetime. Mm-hmm. And it's being created by people that just don't want to listen to anybody else. People like the councilor from Ward 1, said, you can't, and I agree with the president, you can't teach ignorance. I mean, it's unnatural. 1969, Richard Nixon, he said, in these difficult years, America has suffered from a fever of words, from inflated rhetoric that promises more than it can deliver, from angry rhetoric that fans discontents into hatreds. And I believe that since 1969, we've actually gone back to that. We've regressed. And the Human Rights Commission, as it stands before us tonight, is not going to solve that. We have to take a look at it, and as a body, and I think as a community, get together and decide what is best for this community and move forward with that, instead of taking this petition and rushing it through and then having to deal with the consequences afterwards. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just have one final thought
Certainly.
before we wrap up? And I just want to be clear, and I'd like to actually address the comments of Councilor Zephyr here. Shalfo Zephyr, excuse me. So I want to give some history related to this petition. I did, in fact, offer to work collaboratively on this effort. I did ask questions. I did suggest that there be input from the community and that we work with the community prior to the petition being submitted. And I was given an ultimatum to either sign the petition or it was going to proceed without me. I did not sign the petition. This is what we have before me. And clearly, as I explained, I had concerns. And this is where we find ourselves. So I just want to make it clear that I did extend the offer to work collaboratively, and I was met with resistance. So it's not for lack of effort. So I just want to make it clear that that's where we stand. Right. So also in terms of the Human Rights Commission, I think, again, and I appreciate your comments, I think maybe many of us feel like a Human Rights Commission or something of that sort, whatever it is defined, or whatever it results in, is necessary, would be helpful here in our city. But establishing a human rights commission before doing the work with the community and getting input from the community and having their involvement and having their vision, being able, like articulating their vision to present it to the community as a whole, is putting the cart before the horse. So we move forward with a petition, say, yes, we're gonna establish a human rights commission. We don't know what it's actually gonna do. We don't know what the function is gonna be, how it's gonna function, like what it actually does is not the way to move forward, in my opinion. So I just wanna leave it there.
Well,
Okay,
one
no,
last-
no. We're gonna take this back into committee as far as legal affairs goes. And I don't know if you're going back into committee with Ways and Means.
Unless there's something else, anything else you want to add?
No, I'm
Okay.
ready to move forward with the
We're good.
recommendation.
If you want to make a recommendation, that's up to you.
It would be my position, I'm gonna check with my committee at this point. My recommendation would be to give this leave to withdraw. And I'll check with Councilor Romero.
Can I just get some clarification? Tabling versus leave to withdraw? Does tabling allow for amendments? Does it allow for community input and work and so on and so forth?
It would allow for it to come off. I'm not sure the time limits. It would be a pretty, 4 months. So leave,
Leave to withdraw would be a better option,
Then it can be resubmitted.
resubmitted at any point.
At any
Without
point.
prejudice.
By who?
With
Right.
amended language and.
Like
so on and so
you
forth.
start over clean, fresh, if it's given leave to withdraw.
Okay, all right, wanted to get clarification, sorry. So given that explanation, then I will support the recommendation.
okay, Council Cormier?
I will go along with that as well.
All right, so the recommendation from the Legal Affairs Committee will be leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, and I'll check with them. Obviously, as the chair of Ways and Means, that'd be my recommendation. I'll check with the other member of Ways and Means.
I don't support that recommendation. I think we should keep this on our agenda. We sat down here for months working through the ADU petition. We could do the exact same thing with this petition. I don't see why we can't use this as a framework for a Human Rights Commission. So I'd much rather go that route, so I won't support leave to withdraw.
Okay, and the third member?
I would support leave to withdraw.
Okay, so it's not a unanimous recommendation, but it's a majority to give leave to withdraw without prejudice on 37-26 from Ways and Means.
Do you want to close out yours?
Yep, so at this point, the Ways and Means portion is over, so I'm going to ask for the other member or another member for a motion to adjourn
So moved.
the Ways and Means part, and Councilor Robbins, seconded by Councilor Cormier. All those in favor? Okay, that's all three of us are adjourning the Ways and Means portion. The Legal Affairs part is still open, and Madam Chair, you can take over from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is petition 40-26, Pluto Cannabis Corporation Outlet. Pluto Cannabis seeks a special permit for the Leominster City Council to assume operational control of the existing operational adult-use marijuana establishment at 130 Pioneer Drive, currently operated by Revolutionary Clinics in accordance with the City of Leominster zoning ordinance, Chapter 22, Article 18, Marijuana Facilities, Section 22-105. I may have jumped the gun a little of putting this on for a subcommittee hearing today. This did go out for some referrals, and I'm happy to say that we did get some back. We did send out a referral. One of them went to Brian Riley at KP Law. And I'm just going to read this in to the record, and it says, "Hi, Elizabeth." That's coming from our city clerk. In my opinion, this petition and notice are in proper form. The location is currently the subject of a special permit for a cannabis business in the name of Revolutionary Clinics. That business ran into financial trouble, however, and was put into receivership. There have been negotiations going on for a new business, Pluto Cannabis, to assume ownership from the Revolutionary, including approval of the court and new host community agreement between the city and Pluto. Amending the special permit to name Pluto Cannabis is another necessary step to allow Pluto to take over the business. Approving or amending a special permit requires 6 votes in favor, with respects from Brian. The response that I got that I was actually anxious to get was a response from Luke Bolak, who is does our
Code enforcement.
and he was very critical of Revolutionary, and it was very.
Yeah.
He was the go-to guy in the city, is knowing the legal ramifications, the law behind it, all the regulations. He knew them like the back of his hand. So he did send an email back, and I'm just going to read it quickly regarding petition 40-26. He's would vote in favor of Pluto Cannabis taking over for Revolutionary Clinics regarding the recreational marijuana dispensary. After reviewing the special permit application, everything looks to be in order. He has met with the 2 owners of Pluto, Ansh Bamar and Umang Patel, and gone over their business plan for the location. Their plan and continued plan conform with the Cannabis Control Commission. There is 24-hour monitoring of all aspects of the building, a locked vault inside, a secured entry point to enter the building, a secure entry-exit point to receive products, as well as locked areas for weighing and making products. He actually reached out in reports that on speaking with the city of Lynn. They have had no issues regarding Pluto or their operations and consider them to be in good standing at their first location. The site is still operational. And then he goes on to talk about the marijuana tax and what we've collected. So I think it's really important to have Luke on board quickly, to know that he's reaching out and to get his input. So with that, we're still at the beginning of this. I'm hoping that we're going to get more information and more referrals for Monday night's meeting. But I thought that this was a good starting point and a good way to get the ball rolling on this case. So unless anybody has any questions, Council.
What were the other referrals that you had?
We sent out to the chief of police,
Chief of Police, yeah.
the fire department, and
And Luke, which we got back.
Luke. Oh, we sent it to Greg Robichaud as well. And did we send?
And KP Law.
And
which we
KP
got-
Law, which we got back. So we have some good responses in a really timely manner, so I'm hoping that we can clarify this.
So,
Did you have any other questions?
No, not related to this one.
Okay.
I don't have any questions at this point, but, just a couple of comments. I'm very comfortable that Luke is involved and is on board and has done some investigation and some research clearly into this. I think what we're going to need is, if any of these other facilities come into town, we need to have someone like Luke, who's taken courses now, from what I understand, some of this cannabis stuff, and we need to be proactive to make sure that everything is being followed. I think clearly we can't just assume that everyone's going to do what they're supposed to. We need somebody who's on top of this, and I think we're on the right track with Luke, but obviously we haven't had a public hearing yet, and there's still a lot more to come. I would have to assume, although I don't like to assume, that there's some representative of this entity is going to be here at the public hearing, make some kind of
They've already contacted us.
okay, to make some kind of a presentation. So it's kind of premature to really, obviously, they're not going to give a recommendation right now, but
Yeah, you can't.
You can't.
You can't.
You couldn't. So, but I think we're on the right track, and we'll see what they have to say Monday night.
Okay.
I do have one thought. When we were, and I'm not sure if it was this particular company, it may have been. I had spoken with I think it was Brian actually, and just kind of asking in terms of, I know there were reporting requirements that previous companies had failed to meet. There were certain things that they had to actually comply with and that they failed to do, but there was really no there was no enforcement, there was really nothing that could be done for failing to meet any of those requirements. So I asked him, do we have language, or should we include language or something where failure to meet certain, whatever's in the contract, failure to comply, right, would result in, I don't know, whatever I don't know the specifics, but a fine or whatever the case is, because it really sets, I think, the precedent, and it really sets the understanding with businesses that are coming in. You are required to comply, and failure to do so will result in consequences, because if not, there are no consequences to them failing to meet those requirements. They can do what, we may wind up with, issues that we've had with other companies in the past. So, I don't know if that discussion has come up or if that was ever taken into consideration, but I just wanted to kind of flag that as well.
So what happened, and actually I'm going to turn it over to Madam President, because she was the chair of a special committee that dealt with this specifically. But Luke, our code enforcement individual, Luke Bolak, who is a great resource, started to raise some red flags and started to come in, and there were some changes in ownership. There was filings that they have to make that they weren't making, and they were given a little bit too much leeway, I think. Oh, we're gonna get to that, we're gonna get to that. I think with having his experience now and him having gone through it in this committee, and I'll turn it over to Madam President as well, I think with that experience now, I think we're in a much better position to stay on top of it and to enforce it and to nip anything immediately. So I think we're in better shape that way, Madam President.
Well, I do think we need to look at the ordinance again, because I don't think it was done quickly. It was done right in the beginning when the state allowed marijuana sales, started with medical. And I think there were some mistakes made in the ordinances. Then to compound that, we allowed 3 in the city. 2 of them went bankrupt. This one's in receivership. We did deal with one that got into a mess with the owner of the property. They were in federal court. So, our hands were kind of tied for a little bit because there were so many law enforcement people involved. But we did work it because we had them in a good position, because they weren't able to go anywhere else or do anything else unless we released it. So we were able to get, I think it was $15,000 or $18,000 that paid for our legal expenses, to pursue going after them. But we got host agreements were drawn up in the beginning, and then they were found to be illegal. So we didn't get the money up front, but it wouldn't have mattered, because if we had, we would have had to pay it back. So that really didn't matter. It was a learning experience for the 3. So I do think that this is it's a good company. I've looked into it. I've had the paperwork on it. They've done everything right so far. They're being recommended by the receiver of the courts as the best company to take over. So I think, they can be successful and start, probably getting us some money. And reporting, the one thing that was not done is they're supposed to come before us once a year to the council with an annual report and a financial report. And we haven't seen any of them for 6 years. And that's what we started going after them, but we had and then Luke came on board, so he started getting involved with, with enforcement, and, mostly for the Kevin Crowley piece, originally, that went through the courts in the federal court. So,
This will be the only marijuana facility in Leominster then? Is that what you're saying? Because the other 2 went bankrupt?
Yeah, one never opened.
Oh, one never opened.
Right, but the facility is there, and there's discussions about the building being sold. So I'm not quite sure what the status of that one is. I don't think anything's happening with it just yet. It's been sold a couple times.
So this will be the recreation?
This will be the only one right now operational.
Yeah.
Okay.
So keep in mind, when it all first started, we didn't have anything on the books.
Right.
So it was a rush to get something on the books so we could retain some control over it.
Otherwise, they could go anywhere in the city if we didn't zone it.
Right, so
Was-
yeah, exactly. So that's why we had to get something on the books. I think we've learned from that experience. Thankfully now, we have Madam President, who was thrown into the fire on it before, so she's our go-to here. And we have Luke to work with as well, so we've got good resources for us now.
And I will just say, you know, through our bad experiences, hopefully we've gained some knowledge and some, especially through Luke, who's been really, you know, well-versed with a lot of this stuff. Certainly, we can't hold anybody now or in the future hostage because of misgivings in the past. But hopefully, we've learned from our mistakes that, you know, I mean, it could have been a two-part thing where, you know, they weren't doing what they were supposed to, but, you know, we also didn't have Luke to be out there enforcing this as well. You know, making sure that, okay, here's a checklist. Did they do this? Did they do that? Did they do the other thing? You know, and there's this whole long checklist, and no one was checking either. So, you know, I think.
And neither was the Cannabis Commission.
Right.
But like
So-
failure to, so like they're reporting, like failure
Right.
to comply, right?
Yeah.
Does he have some type of authority? Like, is there something that he can do to?
The problem is he doesn't have any authority. He's a code enforcement officer, but he doesn't have any authority.
He
So
can't
I
shut
think
them
that's
down.
probably what he's working on.
He doesn't have the authority to shut them down or
I
anything?
don't believe so.
No.
I don't think he has any authority.
Someone must have, someone
But
must.
yeah, and he has to go through Peter Nile.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got to go through Peter.
Yeah, he
Nile.
reports to Peter Nile, and all the letters that were written at our request through the whole dealing with Kevin Crowley, Luke would write some of them up from what he knew was a problem, and it'd go to Peter, and Peter would send the letter out.
Does the police chief have authority to shut someone
I
down
don't
for
believe
not
on that
complying?
one, not unless they were doing something
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
illegal.
Right.
That was the conversation I
Fire.
had with the attorney when we discussed it here, and I think was my understanding, was like there really is nothing that gives them the authority.
No, it's by ordinance. That's why we need to
Exactly.
look
So
at the
he-
ordinances
right.
again,
So he
too.
was like, oh, it could be helpful just to have like the language again, like failure to report,
Yeah.
whatever the case is, to comply. Especially if, you know, to have an enforcement officer, if there's no real authority to really make them comply, what do? You keep sending them notices, right?
No,
So
that's
I'm
a-
just, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a good point, and it's something to keep in mind and something we
Yeah.
can bring up when we review the ordinance. What's funny is when we were doing that ordinance, we were among the most restrictive in all the cities and towns around us. And then this
Fitchburg did like 9 of them
Yeah.
right away because Steve DiNatale wanted the money from them all.
Right.
But then it turned
Yeah,
out
that-
that
that
none of that
didn't work
host
out too
agreement
well.
money, they had to give it back.
Right.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we were the most restrictive, and yet we still found all these loopholes. So I'm hoping now that we have the knowledge, we have the experience to firm up those, fill in those loopholes and move along.
We didn't lose a lot, but we didn't gain what we should have gained.
Right.
So,
Very good.
Okay, if we're
What's the
good,
recommendation for
Frankie,
this
you
one?
good? You're good.
At this point, further time.
Yeah, it has to be further time. It's on.
yeah, they got a
Yeah.
public hearing, so.
Yep.
So I would entertain a motion
I'll
to
make that
adjourn.
motion.
Ladia, you're gonna give me
Yep.
all in favor, signify in the usual manner.
Bridge-
Ladia, wave to me, there we go, we are adjourned.
Beautiful.